All right, early Merry Christmas, everyone. So today is the 23rd. Tomorrow is the Christmas Eve. So just want to wish everyone a happy holiday. So a quick intro. I'm Harrison, also known as the CEO Dad. So my social handle kind of explains myself pretty well. I have three young sons. So I'm a dad and at the same time the CEO of Spokeo. So just in case you haven't, you're one of those 60% of people in the United States who haven't heard of Spokeo. We are a people search engine, people intelligence service that organize about 15 billion records into 600 million profiles to help people search, connect, and know who they're dealing with. So whether it's helping people reconnect with their long lost families and friends, or helping law enforcement officers catch bad guys. Our goal is to provide the best people intelligence service to make sure that people can make better decisions. Our tagline is "Why Google when you can Spokeo?" Right. So today, our topic and theme is talking about the future of work. Right. So we all know that. Sorry, when I say Google, my phone voice assistant just start talking. But yeah, today we're talking about the future of work. As we know, the pandemic starts in March, and work has changed fundamentally. A lot of us are working at home now. There's a stay-at-home order still in effect right now. Um, so I think a lot of people have these questions about what the future of work would look like, um, post-pandemic, going forward. I'll just share a little stats. We have the Innovate Pasadena put a poll about asking the audience, asking the people, what do you think the future of work will look like next year, right? 22% of people will say they will work from home. 11% said they will go back to the office, and 66% says it's going to be the hybrid both. Actually, Spokeo has done an internal survey ourselves in the company, and about 60% believe that it will be the hybrid both as well. So I think this is, and I also have seen a couple studies, and I think that these numbers are pretty consistent. So actually, just recently, Spokeo announced that we will go into a flexible work environment going forward. So people can work anywhere in the U.S. basically, and actually people can work from home, or they can go into the office going forward. So it's flexible. People have choice. You don't have to work from home. You don't have to work in the office. You can do both, whatever you like. So I think we've been seeing these trends and these things, these numbers and studies, and that's why we actually go toward that flexible work in the past few months, and I think that's going to be the future as well. So you have questions, please feel free to enter into the Q&A box in the Zoom, and then if you have questions about what the future of work will look like, what is the definition of work, right? And how does that affect different industries and things like that? Feel free to put your questions there, and I'll answer one by one. So while people have been thinking about questions, I'll just kind of share a little bit about the thinking behind why Spokeo uh, go with the flexible work, right? And by the way, flexible work is different from remote work, right? Because I think there are companies. One of the most famous ones, GitLab, and then another one is Automatic, which is actually the maker of WordPress. They went to remote work where everyone is remote. So it is different. Flexible work is not remote work. Flexible work means that you have the flexibility to go into the office, right? And or work at home at any time. So the choice is yours. So it's actually different from remote. But just want to share a little bit about why we went that way. Um, actually on a personal level, I had a little aha moment about a couple months ago when my son entered the first grade. And the first day of his first grade is on the computer at home. And that's when I realized that we're raising a new generation of people who actually will see remote learning and remote work as first and foremost, right? Kind of like when you first hold the iPhone, you realize that the smartphone will never be the same. It's actually, I kind of had that aha moment back in August, and and looking at different trends, whether it's there's a theory in sociology and history called social cycle theory. It's basically saying that history is going cycles, right? And centralized office actually was a byproduct and a result of industrialization. Before industrialization, people actually work in villages. Work gets done at home in villages. And then because of industrializations and things like that, people start going to cities, going to factories and things like that. And that's when the centralized office started. And if you believe in these kind of social cycle theories and all that stuff, I think the decentralization of office is the future and the trend for the next 20, 30 years. So that's another reason. And also, I think whether it's the technology with remote work, remote communications, whether it's um, the results driven, what's technically called managed by objective. And one of the most famous managed by objective framework is called OKR. Now, whether these kind of advances, I think all of these are very conducive to the flexible work environment. So these are kind of the reasons and the whys behind why we went to flexible work. All right, I see one question. When will you decide to pull back from flexible work environment? Will you require teams to meet in person? So actually, the flexible work environment policy is a forward-looking and future-looking one. So it's not one of those things where it expires by summer of 2021, right? It's what we believe the future of work will be in the next 20, 30, or even 50 years. So it will not be pulled back. It is a very forward-looking policy, and the pandemic will be over at some point in the next year or two. And this policy goes beyond the next year or two, right? So will we require teams to meet in person? So the answer is yes, kind of. So every quarter, we will ask our teams to meet at least once, right? And the different teams obviously have different requirements. For example, the office team, they have a different requirement from engineering teams. But we would ask our teammates to meet once a quarter, right? And the goal of that is to ensure some of the things cannot be replaced, right? Some of the the benefits of an in-person collaboration currently cannot be replaced by remote collaboration. So we do recognize that, and that's why we have that in-person element once per quarter. So another question: what challenges are you expecting to tackle in going hybrid for Spokeo? So that's a very good question. There are many different challenges actually. So I'll go into one by one. So one of the common challenge that common questions about remote work is how do you have effective management, right? Because now you don't really know what people are working on. You can't really look over people's shoulders and things like that. You don't even know whether people is in front of their desk. And I think the solution to that is to go beyond time tracking and go beyond just task-based management. And again, earlier I was alluding to what's called management by objectives, and there's multiple management by objective framework. My favorite one, which happens to be the most popular one, is called OKR, objective and key results, right? So it's about empowering the teams, right? It's about setting, collaboratively setting goals or so-called objectives, right? And key results, a lot of times KPIs, right? Key performance indicators. Collaborating, setting the what, and empowering the team on the how. So how do they achieve those objectives? How do they achieve those key results? You empower the teams to do that. And that's actually one of the most popular management by objective framework. And that's what we are pushing toward. Some people call it results-driven management, right? So you focus on the results and empowering the team on the how. You don't track on the times and things like that, you know. And I think we've been working on this for the past 3-4 years. Easy said than done, to be very frank. How do you write good OKRs? It's actually quite an art, right? And I can go into that. How do you write a good one? But long story short, you want to avoid task-based OKRs. You want to focus on results-based OKRs, right? But those are challenges, and it's a ongoing process and the ongoing education and learning experience for the entire team. Because at the end of the day, OKR is not Harrison sets it and everyone does it, that kind of thing. It's a collaborative, two-way conversation. So that's on the management side. The other thing, for example, on the communication, obviously, when you go remote, the communication challenges are different, right? You cannot see people's expressions that well, and you lose a lot of these, what I call contextual cues or 3D contextual cues, right? So how do you do that and stuff like that? I think, long story short, we got to invest more and focus more on asymmetric communications, right? Asynchronous communications. So synchronous communications when people meet in real time. Asynchronous is the opposite, right? So example of asynchronous communication will be email. Another example will be a wiki-like knowledge-based system. We use Confluence, which is an Atlassian product at Spokeo, right? It's basically an internal wiki. So focus a lot more on asynchronous communications, focus a lot more on written communications. How do you train and coach your team members, right, to do those well? Because how do you say and pick words that that is succinct yet very clear, right? So it avoids miscommunications. The worst words are the words that different people see it and they interpret differently. So how do you use those words, you know, in a very succinct and clear manner? You know, those requires a lot of learning and a lot of training as well. So I think it's a ongoing process and learning experience for all of us. But at the end of the day, I think the key to remote communications is a continuous improvement on asynchronous communication. All right, another question. What do you think the new office will look like in the future? Also, do you have any other tips or things you have learned in 2020 to help remote teams work better together? So I think the new office will focus more on social in-person collaborations, right? Because in a flexible work environment, people can choose to work in the office or not, right? And I think what's going to happen is people will come to the office probably twice a week, but not 5 days a week. I think that's what's going to happen. So we need to figure out what's the role of the office in this new future. And the role of office, I think, is no longer about space or desk for warm bodies. You know, I think it's no longer about that. We need to ask why is the office important? I think the mindset prior to the pandemic was why not office, right? Because we take office for granted. It's like, hey, office is just a part of life. It's you don't ask why. It's just like you have to do it because everyone does it, that kind of thing. I think post pandemic, we need to really think about the opposite, right? The opposite kind of mindset: half glass, half empty, half glass empty, half full, that kind of thing, right? You need to ask why office. And I think ultimately, the goal of the office in the new flexible work environment is to facilitate in-person synchronous collaborations. So what that means is I think there should be more social breakout space, right? I think it should have more in-office decorations or things like that that really further and advanced the culture of your team. Right? I will, I think this, I will go a little bit of a tangent. The culture of the company needs to transcend beyond physical space, right? In the new flexible work environment. That said, the office should facilitate and augment and enhance that culture, like so that people can experience that in real life, when they come to the office 2 times a week or less. Right? So I think that's the goal of the office. So it should no longer be just a bunch of desks and just space for warm bodies. That's what I call it. But rather, it needs to be purposeful. We need to really think about why office for all of our companies, and it's going to be a little bit different for all companies. And we need to design and redesign our office that way. Now, the second question is, do you have any other tips or things you have learned in 2020 to help remote teams work better together? So as I mentioned earlier, I think one of the key challenge in remote work is communication. And I was talking about the importance of asynchronous communication and the importance of written communication. And I just have one little tip for effective written communication. I call it cross-referencing. So basically, when we write something, or when we actually put a number, a formula in the Excel file, right? Sometimes we'll make mistakes. Let's talk about Excel file for a second, right? Sometimes we might mistype a formula or something like that, whatever reason that is. And the best way to catch the error is actually to use a different perspective to check it, okay? Because if you look at philosophy, one of the definitions of truth is that it needs to be coherent and consistent, meaning that when you're coming from different perspectives, it's always true. It doesn't change. The truth doesn't change from different perspectives. To give a math example, I was teaching my son last week or 2 weeks ago. 7 plus 8 is 15, right? But if you look from a different perspective, 15 minus 8 is 7, right? So if 7 plus 8 is 14, is 14 for a second. If you think it's 14, then 14 minus 8, it's not, right? It's not 7, it's 6, right? So you need to look from different perspectives, and that kind of truth, right? That kind of cross-referencing check does not just work in math, but it also works in languages too. As one of the famous linguist and philosopher, I think, too, his name is Wittgenstein. He's talking about the key to language is about visualizing the picture, right? So actually one of the famous things he talks about is a lot of feelings, right? All those kind of adjective words, it's not great because it conjures different images, in different people's minds. So in languages, you want to use words that make sure that the image in different people's minds are consistent and the same to avoid miscommunication. So all in all, I think the tip I would give is what I call cross-referencing, right? Make sure you cross-reference your numbers or your vocabularies or choice of words so that you can avoid miscommunication. All right, another question. I know people are working longer hours and harder and are more stressed. How do you encourage a work-life balance? Yeah, I think it's going to be, it takes time, I think, and it takes training because at the end of the day, we all know that the work-life balance, or should I call the separation between work and life, is a lot more blurred now than prior to March, right? So as an example, my commute used to be about 25 minutes, and now it's 10 seconds now. In fact, when there's a notification on my computer, I can hear it in my bedroom, and I cannot help but get up and go check what that notification is. So I think a lot of us can all share the same kind of experience, and we all can feel that the separation between work life, whether space or minds have actually been blurred. Right. So how do we keep that separate? I think ultimately it comes down to discipline, right? So when you say you turn off your phone at 8 o'clock, do you actually really do it? I'll be very honest. I've been saying that, but I haven't I haven't been able to do that very, very well. So I think there's a lot of room for improvements in terms of discipline for me, right? So I think it comes down to individual disciplines, right? So I think that's one of the things that all of us, it's easy said than done, and we all have to be very, very mindful of that. But also to add another thing, we all have to be disciplined to create that kind of work-life separation and balance to keep our mind healthy, right? But at the same time, I also think that the blurring of the lines between work and life is going to happen and stay. I don't think it's going to be reversed. And I think from the corporate company's perspective, Spokeo has started to think about and push this concept of transitioning from living, work to live, right, to life's work. And again, it sounds like a choice of words, but the mindset is very, very different. I think previously people see work as just a necessary means to live, right, to get money and live, and some people don't enjoy working. They just see it as a necessary evil. I think we need to start changing that, right? And companies need to create aspirational goals and aspirational objectives to align everyone to that goal, and that's what we call life's work. We want Spokeo to be our team members' life's work, right? They're not just proud of it, but then what they're doing all aligns to that, So that's an ongoing process for Spokeo and for all the companies to do, because at the end of the day, we do recognize that the line between work and life is going to be blurred, right? So how do we make sure that the time people put into work, they don't feel that it's some necessary thing that they have to do, but rather something that they're passionate about. All right, any one last question? All right. Well, like I said, early Merry Christmas and hope everyone have a safe and happy holidays. I think 2020 is definitely a very interesting year. I think none of us can predict that we'll be staying at home during the holidays. I think a lot of us have this kind of tradition of whether it's going to parents' house or traveling during the holidays, and that has all changed. So I just want to wish everyone a safe and relaxing holiday, and you know, wish everyone good health. Sounds like a cliche, but I think it's the most fitting wish that I can give for 2020. Thanks a lot. Have a good one.